Oh, hello. In today's video, Star Wars Shatterpoint again. Sorry, not sorry. We're going to be looking at the unaffiliated units and some list building and some general thoughts. But first, what is an unaffiliated unit? That's not a game term, it's a term that I have come up with. So far, we reviewed all of the following groups of tags, and there are videos for all of these on the channel that you can check out. We got the Galactic Republic, which is, of course, the good guys from the prequel era, right? The Separatist Alliance, that's the bad guys from the prequel era. The Galactic Empire, that's friends of Darth Vader. Rebel Alliance, that's friends of Luke Skywalker. The Bounty Hunters, so Bounty Hunter tag, kind of what you'd expect. Some from the Clone Wars era, and most of them from the sort of original trilogy era, right? We've done a separate little video on the Ewoks. We got the video on the few little Dathomirian units that you can kind of form a coherent list with, as well as Mandalorians. I'm not sure that's spelled correctly, but never mind. And if you take all those groups out of Shatterpoint, right, and you cover them off as we've done, we're left with 7 units that we've never talked about. Well, no, some of them we've talked about, right? But the majority, because some of them I've like said, oh, there's a good list for this faction if you bring in this one other character, okay? But the majority of these have never been mentioned in a video, and I want to cover them off, and I want to think about them because I think they're some of the most interesting figures in the game. 6 of the 7 units that we're going to talk about today have the scoundrel tag. And we could have done a massive video where we rated all of the scoundrel characters in the game. But I don't think that makes sense because the bulk of the scoundrels have already been covered. Scoundrel is an interesting tag. Scoundrel is basically a tag that's given to anybody that's ever done a crime, essentially. Now, there's a lot of scoundrels that are in. So half the Mandalorians, just over half the Mandalorians, are scoundrels. Okay. All bounty hunters are also scoundrels. There's a huge representation of scoundrels within Rebel Alliance, right? Cassian Andor, Han Solo, they got scoundrel primaries, they got scoundrel secondaries as well. No Rebel scoundrel supports though. Galactic Empire has very few. Moff Gideon, I think, is possibly the only scoundrel within the Empire. Separatists, you've got Rift Hampson's box. Galactic Republic, you've got the Bad Batch, right? So I didn't want to do a scoundrels video because it would be a lot of repetition. But as we go through, you'll find that these 7 unaffiliated units particularly do much with. They do stuff with the scoundrel tag directly, and this video doesn't cover all of the scoundrels. The scoundrel tag is really there for people, I think, that want to brew up weird lists. And I also think it's particularly worthwhile thinking about Lando Calrissian, about the Mandalorian, because they have synergy with scoundrels. I've not included those cards in this video. I've talked about them both twice in 2 different videos, but they do need to be borne in mind for these discussions. I'm also going to throw in there Cad Bane as well, and you'll see why I want to throw out Cad Bane in a minute as well. So, what units are we actually mainly talking about today? Well, we got 1 primary, Hondo, Honest Businessman. We got 3 secondaries, so Lobot, Obi-Wan, and Guam. And then we've got 3 supports, Han and Chewie, the Wingguard, and the Weequay Pirates. Now, where do these guys come from? Why do they exist? What's going on? Well, Hondo, Guam, and the Weequay Pirates form a box. It's the only kind of box that exists in the game that is purely unaffiliated with any of the other tags that we have that we've looked at. Okay. Obi-Wan Kenobi Out of Hiding comes in the first dual pack package with Vader 1, and he just doesn't have any relevant tags. He doesn't have scoundrel. He's the one non-scoundrel. He's just Jedi, I think. That's his only tag. Then we've got Lobot and the Wingguard, who come packaged with Lando Calrissian. Lando Calrissian not included in this video because he's in both the Rebel and the Empire video, because he himself can have Rebel and Empire tags, but Lobot and the Wingguard have no other tags beyond Scoundrel. And then, of course, we've got Han and Chewie in it for the money. Many people think of them as a Rebel Alliance unit because, well, it's Han and Chewie, right? But Han and Chewie in it for the money thematically don't have Rebel Alliance. They just have Scoundrel and Spy. It's funny, much like Scoundrel loosely means has at some point committed a crime. And so there are a lot of Rebel Alliance scoundrels because the legitimate authority is the Galactic Empire, and I digress, right? Spy tends to mean has at some point dressed up in costume, which is quite funny to me. So these are the 7 units we're going to look at. We're going to start with Hondo. Hondo. So let's start with Hondo's identity. Fair? What's fair? When an allied scoundrel character makes an attack as part of a combat action, if the defender is engaged with one or more characters in other allied units that are not wounded, it may add 2 dice to the attack roll. If it does, after the attack is resolved, each allied unit within 2 of the defender except the attacking unit gets strained. This is an interesting ability. It's an interesting identity. So for sure, 2 extra dice can be powerful, right? 2 extra dice can be powerful. There's nothing, there's nothing I can say to convince you that that's not true. But popping out strain on 1 or more friendly units is, I think it's a big problem. Now, I know there's people out there that really like Hondo with Cassian because Cassian has his ability to generate extra dice for himself and put 2 damage on somebody in who's in combat with this target. So if you have Hondo on the table, you can really screw over this allied unit by damaging them and putting strain on them, and you can just throw loads of dice at Cassian. I think that's cute. Is it really powerful? I'm not sure. It's a really difficult identity, this. Some people out there are going to love it, right? Because, 2 dice is powerful. Think how often people were taking Darth Vader, Jedi Hunter, before he was nerfed to prevent you from just taking him with anything. People used to really like him in a lot of lists. Now, this it only works with the scoundrels, so you're really looking at like bounty hunters, Mandalorians, a lot of Galactic Republic as well, or niche little lists with Bad Batch, right? So Bad Batch Hondo is a list. You take all of the Bad Batch, including like the extra secondary and Hondo squad, and then you take Hondo, and then you take like ARF troopers, right, or something like that. So niche ability and a weird one to really quantify because popping out all those strains just doesn't seem fantastic. Let's get on to his identity, his tactic. That's just good business. At the start of this unit's activation, refresh a force for each objective controlled by another player. So, force refresh, which will often get you 2 and sometimes 3 force, right? Because it's the start of Hondo's activation before you've done anything. And if it's not getting you 2 force, then your opponent's not doing particularly well, and I guess you can live with that, right? Now, this is a really strong ability, and is perhaps the best reason to take Hondo. And again, is another reason that some people out there quite like Hondo Cassian, because Cassian doesn't have a lot of force. He only brings 2 force. Hondo only brings 2 force, and he doesn't bring a way to refresh it. The thing is, there are actually 3 primaries. There are 3 primaries out there, Lando, Cad, and Hondo, who are all operating in this space of going, well, look, I'm a scoundrel primary, okay, and I can fix all of your force problems with one mechanic or another, right? And then you've got to look at what the other thing is that they bring as a package to decide which one you prefer. With Cad, he only really brings any additional synergy with Bounty Hunter. He doesn't really bring that much in the way of synergy. What Cad brings is he brings 9 squad points, right? With Lando, who we've looked at before, Lando brings his shenanigan of being able to be rebel or empire, and then being able to lend out those tags to other scoundrels in the list. Okay, and with Hondo, he's bringing his fair what's fair identity. Really, is his big extra thing that he's bringing along with his force regen. Now, in terms of the actual force regen ability, I think Hondo's is one of the strongest. I mean, don't get me wrong, Cad and Lando can both get you a lot of force as well. With Lando, you're a little bit beholden to luck, right? Of where he's going to come up. If Lando is your first card or your last card, that's not so cool. And if you shuffle him in and then draw him back again, that's not great, right? CAD has to be, you have to earn it with CAD, you have to be wounded stuff. But it isn't anybody on your team, right? Whereas Hondo will just give you a big old chunk of it whenever he activates. The problem is, and the thing that makes Hondo possibly the hardest to justify of those three that I just mentioned, who are all kind of sort of doing the same job, is Hondo brings the smallest number of squad points. He brings 7 squad points. And that just makes it difficult when you're trying to build a list which is ultimately trying to do something else, and you're bringing in one of these figures because you need that force refresh. Then we've got inspiring stories, so many of them true, which cost a force. Choose an allied unit. One character in this unit and one character in the chosen unit may dash. So this is great. It's dash another for a force. And it's a dash for me and a dash for thee, right? Which is really good. It doesn't seem that impressive, and you look at it, you're like, actually, the lovely thing about this is it's totally tag agnostic. You want to dash General Grievous, you can dash General Grievous. You want to dash Luke Skywalker, you can dash Luke Skywalker. You want to dash Darth Vader, you can dash Darth Vader. You want to dash the Mandalorian, dash the Mandalorian. It doesn't matter, okay? Anybody dash, and that's good. That makes him have a lot of utility in and it's another thing onto his tool belt of Hondo's bid to be included in your list, right? And then we've got what have we here? Also for a force. Choose an enemy unit within 2. The chosen unit is pinned and strained, and then if that unit's order card is in reserve, you may spend a force to shuffle it into its opponent player's order deck. This is really interesting, right? Because we can sometimes say that when we put a pin and a strain on a miniature, that miniature is going to have a dead activation. That miniature is going to have a dead activation because it has to, especially if it's a primary or a secondary, because obviously a support can heal once and clear both conditions, fine. But a primary or a secondary, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to wake up and you're going to heal the pin and take 3? Or are you going to wake up, heal the strain, and then just be pinned, right? It's really good. It really can shut down a unit and stop it having a productive turn. Paying a force to shuffle a thing back in that's in reserve is going to be very situational. Quite often, when I have something squatting in my reserve slot, it's not there because I'm saving it for the perfect time. It's there because I just didn't want to draw it yet, right? So actually, somebody saying, ha ha ha, I'm going to shuffle your thing back in, wouldn't always upset me as the opponent to Hondo here, and it is expensive, but there will surely be times, I'm thinking against Obi-Wan Kenobi with his patience ability where he pops into reserve, uses his, gets his jump, gets set up, gets his heal, gets set up, and then you're pretty sure the next turn the Obi-Wan player is going to go, and now Obi-Wan's going to have his proper turn, now he's in position. So this is quite good at disarming that, which is fun. And then this effort is no longer profitable. Again, for a force. When another allied unit within 4 becomes wounded, you can use this ability. A character in this unit may reposition. The character may not end its movement engaged. Look, it's quite strong. You're getting a reposition for a force on a revenge trigger. We do like that. We do like that. Again, and potentially it's repositioning onto a point. It's like job done, right? Oh, you've wounded somebody that was on a point. and now the point's going to be yours. But if I can reposition, and usually you can end up in such a point where you're just on the edge of the point, on the cusp of it, and not in, unless they're bang splat on the middle, which they generally won't be. If the character they just wounded to get the point was on the middle of the point, then you can reposition around that character and be like, well, I'm now on the back of the point, and the point's not going to flip because here's Hondo, which is pretty good. But for somebody that only brings 2 force, and yes, he has really good force regeneration, but you bring in the force regeneration to try and power your list. If you're bringing Hondo, you're not so much bringing the force regeneration just so Hondo can spend all the force that he's just regenerated, potentially. So he is getting pretty force intensive. Contrast with Lando, who famously uses no force at all, right? Let's have a look at his forms. So I like Clever Captain, okay. A pin on 1, which is pretty good. If you've done What Have We Here, then that's effectively can be 2 damage, right? A repo on 2 makes him really, really fantastically mobile. And then, so when you're getting as far as 3, you get the push. You've also got 4 damage. Could be 5 if you had the pin up already, right? His expertise tables are okay. He's got crit mitigation, right, on his Clever Captain side as well. So 1 defensive expertise is a crit into a miss, which is pretty funny, and 2 is a block and a hit jump, crit into a miss, and then 3 is 2 blocks, crit into a miss. I quite like that. Pugnacious Pirate is I think worse. His expertise tables get worse. I mean, his his melee expertise table gets marginally better, right? Marginally, but his other expertise tables get worse. His dice don't change, and his tree is generally worse. But I will say you get a shove on 1 and then 2 shoves on 2, and so essentially sometimes you will flip over to Pugnacious Pirate because you just need those 2 shoves, right? That's what you want, and that's what you need to get. List building with Hondo is really hard. Hondo is such a cool and colourful character in the Clone Wars. He shows up all over the place. He shows up in the Bad Batch. I think he actually shows up in Resistance as well, which I'm just starting to actually finally get around to watching. Hondo's cool. He has a lot of fans. He's a really popular. There'll be a certain class of Star Wars fan that's like doesn't want to watch cartoons. They'll be like, how is Hondo a popular character? He's not like Han Solo or Darth Vader or somebody. And that's fair. But like the guy that plays Hondo is like a pretty famous voice actor. Just take it from me. Hondo's popular. There's a whole group of people there that want Hondo to be really good. But it's hard to understand where he's best placed. Obviously, with Scoundrels, and he has some fun tricks. But does he do it? It's all about that opportunity cost of running Hondo as one of your 2 primaries. Man, it's like, so you're going to run Hondo. Let's say you're running Hondo with Cassian. So is Hondo going to give you more than Han or Jin or PLC or Luke or Kanan or any of the other? The thing with Cassian is, I'm really high on Cassian at the moment. Like the thing with Cassian is he pairs well into basically everybody. So yeah, no, you can play a list and make it work. And there are certainly lists out there like Cassian that'll be thankful for the extra force. But it's the opportunity cost of taking what is potentially a weaker primary. That said, I'm running a Cassian Lando list at the moment. Obviously, I don't mind that bit too much. But it's also the fact that he's not only is he quite weak comparatively for a primary, he's only bringing the 7 points. So it's hard, therefore, to find a place for him. If you've got a really cool Hondo list, I want to hear it, right? Leave it in the comments. I really like Hondo's package. He's in a pretty hotly contested zone, and I'm not convinced he quite does as much for you as Cad or Lando, who do similar sorts of things, right? about Lobot. Lobot. So into our secondaries now. We got Lobot, Computer Liaison Officer. This is a guy with a pretty much blink and you'll miss it role in The Empire Strikes Back. He is Lando's assistant, right? He like conveys with a nod and a wink to this, and then relays instructions to the Bespin security forces, right? So he starts with a tactic. He's got Detain. Choose an allied scoundrel character. The chosen character may dash. Then choose an enemy character within 3. The chosen character gains pin or disarm. This is really cool because it's a free dash that stays free forever. It's on a tactic, and you can't really overvalue that, I don't think, right? And yeah, it's tied to a scoundrel. Obviously, if you're using Lobot, you're going to have constructed a list that's either entirely or mostly scoundrels. And then you also get to toss out a random pin or a disarm, but you're going to do the pin, right? And that's cool. Then we got security network. So this costs a force. Choose another allied scoundrel secondary within 4 or allied scoundrel support within 4. So, you know, unlike other things, Lobot, he really does need to be played in that almost full scoundrels or almost full scoundrels list. The chosen character can dash and then make a 5 dice attack, targeting an enemy character that has to be contesting an active objective. That's not a huge limitation. A dash and a 5 dice for a force is always going to be a really good ability. It's so... Lobot's got a really good kit, as they say, but it's like if you're building a scoundrels list, like this kind of pure scoundrels business, there's usually something better in Rebels or in Bounty Hunters or in Mandalorians or whatever the other thing is that you're trying to do. But this is a really good ability. It really is a good ability, you know? Battlefield calculations. So when another allied character ends pretty well any kind of move within 2 of this character during its activation, the activating unit immediately makes focus action. Really, 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 really very good. Notice that this doesn't even have to be a scoundrel. It's just anybody. Anybody that stops within 2 of Lobot, hey, free focus. Now, sure, 2, it's tricky. You've got to make sure Lobot's in the right places. But once you get to the dirty fighting on a point where people are tending to cluster up a little bit, it's not that bad. And this is a good argument for putting Lobot into... I'm going to mention Cassian again. But Cassian has that thing where when he Shatterpoints somebody, they get Sharpshooter 2 and Impact 2. And so one of the things you're looking for in a Cassian list is people and things that can get focuses from somewhere. That's why I like Agent Callus with him. That's why I like Base and Turret with him. It's why people like Commandos with him. These are all things that can get free focuses. And Lobot can be another way of building that list because he hands out all these free focuses. And something I've seen people doing is basically going, hey, Lobot, well, I'm going to read the next ability first. Lockdown, right? Then I go back to my train of thought. So just like K2SO, Lobot has lockdown. While he's not wounded, your opponent cannot remove your control token from an objective that one or more characters in this unit are contesting. And so some people have said that Lobot is basically a really good one-to-one replacement for K2 in the Cassian box because he gives out that focus which Cassian really enjoys. Of course, he doesn't do some of the other things Lobot does, the revenge trigger, crucially, but he does have a really interesting package of abilities. Let's look at his stance. Let's look at his stance things, right? So his expertise tables are okay, bordering on bad, right? His defensive expertise is interesting, right? So one defensive expertise, one expertise dice gets you a disarm. 3 gets you crit mitigation along with the disarm. And if you get 4+, unlikely, then you actually expose the person attacking you as well, which is interesting. It's interesting. He's got a shove on 1, which gives him a job to do, and he can do 4 damage on 3. So, you know, he's robust, he's solid, and he's got that free use of security network on 4, which is certain to come up, especially when he's injured, right? That you quite like that there. So he's not bad. It's not a bad tree. Lobot obviously wants to be the linchpin in a scoundrel list. He doesn't need to run with Lando. Unless you're going into rebel scoundrels and you think you're gaining a lot from making Lobot a rebel. Empire scoundrels doesn't really exist, right? But if you're going into rebel scoundrels, and then you're like, well, Lobot could be a rebel and a scoundrel, and therefore, again, he's got. I keep mentioning Cassian. I could say Hand as well. Hand does the same stuff, where he's got some scoundrel stuff, and he's got some Rebel Alliance stuff. So that can be a useful way of doing it. He does pair nicely with Cassian. It's becoming another Cassian loving, I realise. But again, just because he costs 5 and Cassian brings 9 and is a scoundrel, the other place you can fit him in nicely then is under Cad. But then you're putting him under Cad, and then IG is right there. The 5-cost bounty hunter is a real powerhouse enabler of bounty hunter lists. Like, Lobot's cool, but and the stuff he brings is undoubtedly really good. It's just really hard to justify again that opportunity cost that you are giving up from not using something that's more specialized for the list that you're trying to build, which is basically what I said in my last point. There's a lot of things scoundrels would rather do off Mando or Bounty Hunter or Rebel Alliance rather than just bringing in Lobot. So, again, he's a weird one. He's really good. He's a good unit, right? I just struggle to find places to put him. Let's look at Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding, just as a bit of a palate cleanser. So Obi-Wan Kenobi out of hiding is not a scoundrel, right? That's the most important thing to say. He's not a scoundrel, okay? He just has Force User and Jedi. Force User is literally only a detriment. Nothing positive is keyed off Force User. So he has a tactic Run. At the start of the unit's activation, choose a character in this unit or another allied character, engage with an enemy character. The chosen character may heal and repo. Yeah. Yeah. He can give out a reposition. Granted, he can only give out a reposition to somebody who is engaged, right? So he's mostly going to use it on himself, because I think these kinds of abilities are most useful for actually getting yourself into position. It's reasonably rare, although not impossible, that you want to run away. But even if it's just a repo and a heal for himself, because he doesn't need to be engaged to choose himself every single turn, and it's never going to cost you any force. Fantastic. Mind Trick costs you a force. When an enemy character within 5 targets another allied character with an attack, the unit can use this ability. If the attacking character's unit doesn't have a disarm, it gains a disarm. Now, this used to be a completely different ability that was much stronger. We're not going to talk about that so much. This is still a really good ability, and most of the time, if you have disarm and you want to make an attack, then you're going to try and do something to clear that disarm beforehand. You're going to factor that into your plans. Whereas this is, I'm going to attack that guy. Cool, you're disarmed. And then the opponent doesn't have any opportunity to. You don't actually then have the opportunity to go back and say, "Oh, I'll heal and then attack," because the disarm doesn't land until you target the attack. So you will be disarmed for that attack, right? Which makes it quite good. Okay. Is it worth force? A lot of the time. A lot of the time. And then he's got 2 great passives. So greater purpose, he's immune to expose. And when he will gain expose, you heal instead. So, okay. Expose, it's a fantastic condition to be immune to. There are a couple of characters out there. Armorer springs to mind, whose absurd killing power is, at least in part, given over to the fact that you can easily have her target of choice be exposed every single time she fights. And so against those kinds of characters, just being able to actually, you can't expose me, is a massive advantage. Absolutely is a massive advantage. And as for the heal part, Okay, you should be nice, and let your opponent know, oh, if you land an expose on me, I will heal. Often they'll be able to avoid that by stopping short, not applying it, but maybe there'll be times when they want to go through an expose in order to get to something else, some more damage or something else later on. So, but don't gotcha your opponents with that. Let them know, like, if you do land an expose on me, I'm going to heal. So what do you want to do? And then you've got Last Stand of the Jedi. For each injured token he has, you add 2 dice to your attack and defense. So he just gets better as he gets hurt. And that, if he gets down to being taken off the board, that last activation, when he gets to a +4 dice, is going to be really strong. Stance card, he can do 5 damage on 3, fantastic, but he maxes at 7. He's very mobile, he can find a jump or two. He has a move on 3, he can get a shove on 2 or 3, and he has a lot of options. His expertise is not as good as you might expect for Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? It's okay. He is a strong piece. He is a strong piece. He just doesn't synergize with much of anything. And I find that most lists would rather have something with direct synergy. So he struggles to find a place in a lot of lists. Like, he's still good, and you can still drop him in, and you can still use him. And if you really like the Obi-Wan show, if Obi-Wan's a character you really like, and you like the idea of, I mean, this is the only Rebellion era Obi-Wan we have. We don't have like a full-on old Ben, Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I guess you can just use this and paint his beard a bit with a bit more grey in it if you want to represent that, right? And that might be the kind of story that you want to tell. And he's not a bad piece. If you want to include him because you think he's cool, he's not a bad piece. But I just think often there's going to be a better forecast inside your own tag or faction or whatever you're doing that's going to give you a bit more overall. Guam. So we're talking about Guam. Guam costs 3, which is possibly the best thing about Guam. I'm not big on Mr. Guam. Okay, so Guam has a tactic, and it's get moving, you dogs. So look, we love a dash when it's on a tactic and it's free and always free. That's great, but this is tied to weak wave, another allied weak way unit. So there are precisely 2 valid targets for this ability in the entire game, and those are Hondo and the weak way pirates that we're going to look at in a minute, right? So Guam is really only useful if you are deciding what you want to do is run Hondo's whole box. And yeah, and it used to be that he was your only choice. Now you can run Nosserie. You know, you can run Hondo, Nosserie, and the Weak Way Pirates, and that might be better. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the only time he has a place just because of how limited this ability is. And then he has Spotchka Ration. For a force, choose a scoundrel within 3, double heal. A force for 2 heals is great. You know, well, I mean, it's okay. You know, it's okay. It'll come in. It'll help you. Only on scoundrels, but you're playing a full scoundrel list if you're running Guam, aren't you? Yeah, it's all right. Exit strategy passive. You can climb when you're engaged, and this is relevant because you've got climbs on your defensive expertise tree, right? So otherwise, those climbs would be kind of worthless. I've got you in my sights, so this is a really cool sniper ability with a caveat. So characters in this unit have Sharpshooter 2. When a character in this unit makes a ranged attack, the target does not benefit from cover. After this unit makes focus action, it gains Hunker. We love to see Sharpshooter 2, and we love to see, you know, that you've got not benefit from cover. You don't have a way of getting a free focus. You can argue that you've got a way of getting a free focus, I guess, because you're getting the focus action rolled into the hunker action. And so the game wants you to be like, cool, I go with Guam, I dash another allied weak way that isn't me. Guam's standing at the back. I don't really have anyone to throw out a Spochka to because I'm at the back, so no one's in 3. And then I'm going to focus and shoot somebody and get an extra 3 dice and be hunkered. It's not bad. He does only cost 3. Maybe I should let off on him. He's not awful for a 3 cost, I suppose. I think he works well in his weak way box, is what I'll say. Pack Hunter. Oh, I will say, because I wrote it on the slide, you could, I suppose, run Lobot in the other squad in your full scoundrels list where you're including Guam, and then he could get focused that way, worth mentioning. Pack Hunter. When a character in this unit makes a melee attack targeting an enemy character that's engaged with other allied weak way characters, you add 2 dice to attack roll. Why does he have this? He's a sniper. He's got the sniper ability. I've got you in my sights. So he has this weird counter synergy that makes me dislike him. I also don't. I've said this before about Wolf versus the Wolf Pack. I love this ability on 2 model supports where they can claim it off each other, right? I kind of find it more annoying on single body secondaries, especially a single body secondary who wants to hang around at the back of the board because he's not moving up because he's dashing a friend and focusing and shooting, which isn't the best use of a thing in Shatterpoint anyway, right? Let's look at his stance. So look, his ranged expertise is really good. Yeah? Crit on 1, 2 crits on 2, 3 crits on 4, I will take it. Okay. He can do 5 damage on 3, I'll take that. Or 2 pushes on 3, I'll take that. Right. He's only rolling 5 dice ranged though, although if you know, that goes up to 6, 7, 8 dice. It's not all the dice in the world. Guam's not that bad for a 3 cost, okay? And you can't take, if you're building a squad and with it, I'm never going to take Guam where I could take Bosk. I don't think, right? And then, so we're looking at, in the Clone Wars era, you've got Guam, you've got Nosseri. I think Nossa's probably the better pick for a lot of lists, but he is what he is. He's fun if you're playing the full weak way box. Okay? Yeah. Moving on. Han and Chewie, in it for the money. Okay. I've talked about these before, but they're that good. I'm going to talk about them again. Han and Chewie in it for the money. So look out, he's loose is a tactic for a force. One character in this unit may dash after the move is resolved. If that character is engaged with one or more enemy characters, choose one of those enemy characters. The chosen character may dash after the enemy character's move is resolved. If it's no longer engaged with any characters in the unit, it gets disarmed. If the enemy character is engaged with it, is still engaged with the character in this unit, it gains expose. Look, this ability is pretty good because it's a support. Granted, it only lets you dash one character. If you have the force, you pay the force for a dash, right? The fact that you then get to say to your opponent, like, okay, you can dash off the objective that you're on and be disarmed, or you can stay there and be exposed. And a lot of times I've used Han and Chewie, people are like, well, okay, you've got the objective anyway, because I'm 1 model, you're 2 models. I'll just dash off and be disarmed and not be exposed. It's like, that's fine. But this happened to me in a game I played the other day, and it's like, fine, but now I've just disarmed Anakin Skywalker, and that's not nothing, right? And bear in mind, I also got the dash to begin with, and then you've dashed away, but I'm still going to shoot you and do some damage. So I think it's a great ability. Boring conversation anyway, for a force. When you make a combat action, after all the attacks are resolved, this unit may use this ability. One character in this unit may repo. A repo after your attack for a force is very good, makes them very flexible and opens up interacting with 2 objectives in a single turn, right? Because you can put them both somewhere wound somebody. Oh, I managed to wound him. I've got that objective. Maybe if I'm playing on something where we're a bit close in, if I'm playing on like shifting right on that middle line, I can potentially dash from one. I potentially with the full repo get from one objective to another. Really good. And then we got I expect to be well paid for a force. After you roll an order card, use the ability. If you do, you gain a tag of your choice at the end of the turn. Payday by another name. It's nice that you got the option. I don't feel good paying a force for payday ever. And Han and Chewie, I will say, are a very, very force-hungry unit, right? Getting Han and Chewie in your as your active unit when you have no force and you can't do look out, he's loose, and you can't do boring conversation anyway, really, really, really hampers what you can do with them. Their kind of usefulness is really, really tied into how much force you have. Then we got the passive, we're all fine here now. Thank you. Once per turn, when you wound an enemy after effect resolve, you can heal and then refresh force. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of selfish abilities like this. But if you view it as a nice to have rather than for you counting on, it's great. Okay. Now, funny story. I was playing these a tournament recently, and I was playing against I was playing a Cassian PLC list, and I was playing against Cassian Jin, and we got into a thing where it was just briefly like Han and Chewie had wounded somebody. My opponent had a revenge trigger, and I'm not still convinced we did this right. What? It was my turn, the Han and Chewie player's turn. I have just wounded an enemy unit. Which effects happen in what order between Cassian's revenge trigger, which is once the effect is resolved, my opponent can repo a unit. My opportunity to pay for boring conversation anyway, which is when it makes combat action after all the attacks are resolved, the unit can use the ability a character can reposition. Or we're all fine here now, thank you, when it wounds that I heal and refresh force. I think it would be the we're all fine here happens first, and then I think it's the controlling player decides, do I want to do boring conversation after I've seen where Cassian's repo has gone, or do I want to do it before that revenge trigger? Which, in the case of like a Kanan revenge trigger, which is going to be an attack, I might want to do it before to move out the way or out of range or whatever. So, answers in the comments as to exactly how that interaction would go. So, Han and Chewie doing a wound. There's a revenge trigger on the opposite side of the table. Where do those three things slot in timing wise? Let me know. Stances. So 4 damage on 3, you know, we love to see it. These are a secondary, they're getting to attack twice, getting to do 4 damage on 3 is really, really powerful for a support, right? What you can't do is get 2 pushes very easily. To get to 2 pushes, you need 4 successes. You can get a single push on 1, right? And then your max damage is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can do 10 if both characters get a 4 through, which is going to kill most things, right? Which is really good output. Defensively, so okay, let's look at their expertise. Expertise is pretty good, right? 2 hits on 1 and a crit and 2 hits on ranged on 2 is really good. Combat's a little worse just because it's not 1 and then 2 and 3. It's 1 to 2 and then 3. So rolling that 2 expertise at range feels really good. Rolling the 2 expertise at combat feels kind of bad. What are you going to do? Man, their defensive expertise is shocking. Oh, I roll 3 expertise. I get 1 block. Man. Man. That's bad. It feels bad. But they have 10 wounds. So it's like, it's not nothing, right? And it's funny because quite often my opponents be like, "Oh, how many wounds have they got?" And I'm like, 10. And you can see the opponent thinking, "Then I won't shoot Han and Chewie." And I'm thinking, well, good, because I'm going to roll my 4 range defense dice, and 3 of them will be expertise symbols, and 1 will be a miss. And I'll go 1 block, right? And then you'll go sailing down your tree. So it is what it is. But Han and Chewie are very good. I used to think they were the best scoundrel support. Peas and Churret exist now, right? And they are also a 5-cost, 2-body scoundrel support, but they have the ability to get a focus for free. They have better defense. They have pretty similar attack, and they have force refresh that's on the front of that. It happens first. It's part of their tactic, but they are less mobile-ish. I mean, they can still be pretty mobile though. So I think B and C are better than H and C, but they're both in that interesting place where they're really good. These are these really good 5-cost supports. And we got some more recently, and we got 7 Scorcher, I think, are just as good, and Aqua Droids, who are probably not. There you go. Wing Guard, our last support. Headlong Assault is their tactic for a force. Each character unit may dash. If they end their movement within 2 of an enemy character, they can get a free focus, and then they have impact 2. Amazing! For a force, you're getting a dash. You're getting a free focus with impact 1. That brings your melee dice up to 8. And the tree is real bad. Like, it looks good. The front of their card looks good. And then you look at their stance card and you're like, I see. Okay. Rapid response team. When you spend a force to place this unit's order card in reserve, you spend 1 less force. We know this card is bad, so we won't charge you to reserve them. This is fine. But you have to activate them at some point, right? So yeah, you can just leave them parked on a point on your back line until your opponent forces the issue, and then be like, "Oh, I'm going to shoot you," right? They have steadfast, right? Security force. When they're contesting a unit, an active objective, they have steadfast. They're 2 bodies on a point with steadfast for 3. Like, on some level, that's not a bad thing, right? You're paying 3 points for 2 bodies with steadfast on a point. It's not nothing. It's a dead activation for you, but it's not absolutely nothing. Stances. The number of dice you throw is okay. The expertise table they have is dog water. The tree is challenging. You can get to a single shove on 3 and a second shove on 4. You have 2 damage on 2, and you don't discover any more damage until 4 and 5. They're not really going to kill things. You've got a reposition on 3 that could be really handy in the right situation. So, yeah. These are bad. I don't think they're totally unusable, but they're bad. And the problem is, in the Luke Skywalker box, you've got Lando and R2 inside job, who are a 3-cost scoundrel support, right? And they're better. They're just flat better. So the only time we're using Wingguard is either A, we've crafted a list that's so kind of top-heavy, we need 2 3-cost scoundrel supports, right? Or B, you're needing to use primary Lando, okay, and you really need a 3-cost support, right? Or C, you need to use C-3PO and R2-D2, the 3-cost the Rebel Alliance unit, and therefore you can't use Lando and R2 in your list, but you need to use the Wingguard because you also want scoundrels, even though you would never want scoundrels with, so it's not a thing. Basically, you're only ever going to run these because you want to run primary Lando and you need a 3-point. So basically, because you're trying to run Lando's box for reasons, and they really don't work outside of that context, I don't think. And then we got the Weak Way Pirates, a totally different thing. So the Whitway Pirates have Raiding Party, which is force jump with extra steps, because they have pay a force to do a climb, and the next ability is, hey, you can climb when you're engaged. So it's force jump with extra steps. Brilliant. We love force jump. We won't say a bad thing about it. You do also have that climb in 3 expertise. You're probably never going to roll 3 expertise. You're only rolling 4 defense dice, but it's there. Okay. Greedy. Steadfast on an objective. You know what? You're 9 wounds with steadfast. I mean, by itself, that's potentially worth the price of admission. 9 wounds and steadfast on an objective is pretty cool. And then you got Pack Hunter. Now, I slated it on Guam, but on a 2-body support, that's not bad, right? When you make we can't make a melee attack, targeting the enemy character, engage with another iron weak way, you add 2 dice, well, they can give this to each other, right? Therefore, in melee, if they stick together, they're always rolling 8 dice. So, they go into the middle, they stand on an objective, they go, hey, we're steadfast. Somebody tries to eat them off the objective, they stand there, and then they eat back, and they've got 9 health. And then that's not bad for a 4-cost support. I don't understand why people are down on the pirates. They are just really solid. Stance card-wise, they got 4 damage on 3, which is kind of the benchmark of what it looked like. They got the option of a repo on 3. They have a shove on 1. You have to get to 4 to get to your second shove. Fine. Expertise tables aren't the best. But hey, having a straight damage and expertise on 3 dice isn't bad. You do have 2 of them. I really like the Weekway Pirates. They're basic. They are basic. They're not like you're not gonna craft your list around the basis of making Weekway Pirates sing. I think, but they are really good. Now, some folks are saying never take bounty hunters, always take Weekways. Bounty hunters are now totally outclassed by the pirates, and to an extent that's true. I think in a bounty hunter list, you want the bounty hunter tags to do bounty hunter things because you've got Card or Bosk, right? But if in another list you need a scoundrel 4-point support and you don't need payday, yeah, these are great. These are one of the best. I think it might be the best thing in Hondo's box. Better than, but more useful than Hondo, certainly, potentially. 9 health. 9 health, steadfast, force jump, standard amount of damage, push on 1. What more you want? What more do you want from a 4-point support? Here's some lists. Right, so I tried to make an Obi-Wan list first of all, which is, I'll deal with that one first because it's not, it's really different from all the others, and it's not like scoundrel flavored, right? It's a different kind of a list altogether. So, chose this list because Ki-Adi-Mundi can do things with the Jedi tag, basically. It's basically an exercise in saying, look, if what you want is a collection of powerful Jedi to go around and body points, I think Obi-Wan is probably better than Snips at, like, slapping things. You could take Snips instead of Kit Fisto there to really capitalize. Take primary Ahsoka instead of Kit Fisto there to capitalize on the fact they're not using Snips. Is it a good list? No. Does it put an exciting amount of sabers on the board in the hands of quite capable people that can roll up the dice? Yes. Would it be a funny list to play? Yeah, potentially. Right. Would I rather take Obi-Wan Kenobi over Nadar Veb and like a 3-point support? Yeah. Yeah, I would. Nadar Veb sucks. You don't have to take the Wolf Pack. You take Commandos or 212, whatever floats your train, right? Is it a great list? No, but I think it's a funny list and a playable list, for sure. Does it make any lore sense? No, because these guys should be going around with primary Kenobi, but what are you going to do? Just say it is primary Kenobi. He's just there in an advisory capacity for this mission. Let's look at some scoundrel shenanigans. So, a squad I really like, which is Andor, Callus, Baze, and Chirrut. I'm going to go to a GT at the end of August, and at the moment, my list is looking like a Premier list that is anchored around this squad because I'm quite taken with it. You could have as one of your options in there Hondo, Chewie, and Lando and R2-D2 inside job. Benefits being everyone's a scoundrel. Everyone except Hondo is Rebel Alliance, so everyone except Hondo gets to have 2 dice from Callus. Hondo only gets 1 dice from Callus, so sad. But you've got the advantage there of you can have extra Hondo dice. You can have extra Hondo. You're basically trying to power up Cassian into being an ion cannon, right? You're going to charge Chewie into somebody, and then you're going to shoot the person that you've charged Chewie into. You're going to put 2 damage and a strain onto poor old Chewbacca, and then Andor's going to roll a big pile of dice, and then get to re-roll 2 of them because of Callus's abilities. Is it good? Potentially not. Like, personally, if I want to run a scoundrel squad with this Andor squad, I like Lando with Bosk and Han and Chewie in it for the money, right? But your mileage may vary, and this is certainly a way you could do it, especially if what you wanted to do was just include Hondo in a list somewhere for fun. Another list with my favorite Cassian team, and this one is with Jyn Erso and Lobot, and then Lando and R2-D2 inside job. Jyn Erso is also a scoundrel. She's a rebel scoundrel spy. Synergy there kind of works. Lobot's there. Actually, if I wasn't being lazy, I might put Lobot and Lando maybe in Cassian's team, and then Callus and Baze and Chirrut in Jin's team, just because maybe I want to give Andor the best chance to get that free focus more often. It could work. Not a huge fan of the list because Jyn wants to be moving people around the board. You could take out Jyn and put in General Solo instead, also a scoundrel. That could work, right? Or Kanan. That could work. Right? Another way you could fit Lobot in just by mixing things up a bit. So here's where if you feel like it's if you felt like it was important that everybody was a rebel, right? You could run Cassian with Lobot and the Weakway Pirates. Why not? Yeah, you could run. You could put Commandos in there. You could put Pathfinders in there. But let's say you're running it as half of a Premier, and you wanted to use Pathfinders and Commandos as the other half of your Rebel Premier list. One thing you could do, and then you got Lando making everybody a Rebel. So everybody is a Rebel and a Scoundrel, which is great. And then you got Bosk, because Bosk's cool. And then Baze and Chirrut, because Baze and Chirrut are amazing. That's another fun Rebel Scoundrel list. I'm not saying all of these Scoundrels have to play with Rebels, but like it does just make life easier. What does it look like if we want to use Wingard? It basically means that you're running Lando's box, right? You're running Lando's box, and then you want a Scoundrel support. Like, again, same reason we wanted the weak ways in that previous one, because with Lobot, you really want both of your supports to be Scoundrels. Helps, right? And if you can't get to the 5 points to have Han and Chewie, your 4-point Scoundrel support is going to be the weak ways. So yeah, you can do Han and Chewie. They're both Scoundrels anyway. Swap out the Commandos to the weak ways. Run it with Lando's box and do Scoundrel synergy stuff. I don't actually. It's awful. It's a thing. It doesn't super appeal to me, but it's certainly a thing. This next list is one that I unironically am going to take to a GT. I don't know if it's really, really good, but it's very funny to me. So again, it's the same thing with Andor and Callus and Baze and Chirrut. And then you got Lando and Bosk and Han and Chewie in it for the money. Now, the things I like about this list is your primaries kind of aren't that great on their turn, but you've got these two real powerhouse supports that are going and doing all the work. Everyone's a rebel most of the time because Lando's there. You can also use Lando. On Lando's turn, you can give Callus Bespin, which means that everybody in the list can get 2 rerolls from Callus. Lando can actually get 3 if he needs to for a force. It's fun list. It does kind of live or die about whether Lando cooperates in keeping your force up because you only have 4 force, but it's fun. You also get the force refresh from Baze and Chirrut, and you've got potentially the force refresh from Han and Chewie if they wound stuff. Leaving the Rebels Scoundrel archetype for a minute, just to call it something else. If you wanted to run Hondo Box and therefore you wanted to run Guam, I would just run them with Mando, with maybe Dengar and Lando and R2. I think that could be quite fun. Obviously, you're like, oh, Dengar only lets you reserve a bounty hunter for free. So what's he doing in a non-bounty hunter list? Well, he's just there to reserve the Mando for free because the Mando sucks if he's a first turn draw. But then using him later on and getting the extra dice from Hondo is not bad. There's some lists. If you've got some favourite lists with these characters in, I would love to see them. And now I've talked about every single unit in Star Wars Shatterpoint, and I'm not sure what I do with my channel anymore. Do you have any fun lists with any of these units? Do tell me what they are. What sort of Shatterpoint? Understand that many of you want Kill Team content, and it's probably coming. And one person also really wants Spearhead content, and that's coming. But what Shatterpoint content do you want next? If I can guide you to tell me the things that I want to hear, I could talk. Although I feel like it's been creeping into every video, I could talk more about my potential GT list with Cassian and stuff. But you're probably bored to hearing that. We could do a tier list, but I just feel like I feel morally bankrupt doing a tier list when it's not. I've not played with everything myself, or even played against. There are things that I've neither played with or against. Like most of these characters, to be fair. But let me know what you'd like to see. Do subscribe, comment, like, and consider joining the Discord. That would all be excellent. And a big thank you to all my members that have putting up with this huge derailment of what was once a proud Kill Team channel into being a Shatterpoint channel, especially Alex, who is subscribed at the highest tier. And I have a massive amount of respect for you, Alex. Thank you so much for your kind support. Cheery, cheery, bye, 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 guys, bye.